Barbara Marx Hubbard is an internationally known expert on positive options for the future, an author and spiritual visionary. In 1984, her name was placed in nomination for the office of Vice President of the United States. She is the mother of 5 and now tending to another birth, the birth of humanity into the next stage of evolution. Our story begins with an understanding of how Barbara came to write the Book of Co-Creation.
Just in February 1980, I rented a little house in Santa Barbara, California. For the first time in my life, I thought I'd go and be by myself and write, to see if I could get this whole pattern of ideas on paper. And I had my paper, my pencil. I got up at 6 in the morning, morning after morning after morning, and I had a writer's block. I could not get it out. There were too many ideas. They were pressing at my mind. Finally, I surrendered. One day I gave up. I called my sister, and I said, Jacquelyn, let's just have some fun. So we took a drive in Santa Barbara on an exquisite day, a brilliant blue sky, headed for the Botanical Gardens. And I was truly in a state of carefree delight when I saw a little sign that said Mount Calvary Monastery. Suddenly, for the first time in my life, I've never experienced anything like this, an electric field of light seemed to surround me. I felt an inner static electricity, like a resonation. And I said, Jacquelyn, we're going to Mount Calvary. And I literally swerved the car off the road, heading up a little hairpin turn in a mountain in Santa Barbara, heading to Mount Calvary Monastery. And Jacquelyn said, I thought we were going to the Botanical Gardens. Why are we going to Mount Calvary? I said, I don't know, but I've been here before. And the tears were streaming down my face. I felt an enormous sense of anticipation. I could hardly breathe, and as we climbed higher and higher and higher, we got to a plateau, and there was a little tiny monastery. I got out of the car with a deep sense of anticipation and looked upward into the blue sky, and from a higher mountain, a hang gliders club was jumping off, and there were hundreds of people in butterfly wings floating in weightless ecstasy above Mount Calvary. That image of metamorphosis penetrated my consciousness. The light field surrounded me again, and I heard an inner voice. It was not audible, it came from within, but it was not me. And the words were, my resurrection was real. I did it. It is a forecast of what the human race will do collectively when you love God above all else, nature as self, your neighbor also as yourself, combined with science to understand the laws of nature. You shall not all sleep, you shall all be changed. Will you agree to this, Barbara? I need demonstrations. And my own inner voice said in response, yes, I choose to be a demonstration. I choose to be like you, but I don't know how. And the presence said, you choose it, I'll do it. You don't have to know how. Did you know how to do puberty? Did you know how to be born? Did you know how to build a universe? You don't have to know how, you simply have to choose it. Intuitively, I knew that was so, that we are now at a stage where the system is ready to evolve, but it will not be unconscious, it will be by conscious choice. I sat there in deep communion with a presence that I experienced as the risen Christ. That very night, I was there, and I decided to go into the library just at random to pick any book to give me some guidance. I had this deep sense of expectation. The first book I picked at random was a book on crucifixions written by a doctor. And he had examined the whole study of crucifixions and the Shroud of Turin in a study to convince himself as to whether or not this incident in history had happened. And there were pictures of the shroud and pictures of various kinds of crucifixions. And he convinced himself from that shroud that Jesus of Nazareth actually had been crucified, had been laid in that cave, surrounded with that shroud, and had emerged as a new being. I went to bed that Friday evening with the experience of the crucifixion in my own body from having read it. The next morning, every morning the monks give communion. It is an exquisite environment looking over the sea. And I was the only woman. I was just in my ordinary tennis shoes and jeans, and these Anglican priests were dressed in white and gold, and they gave me Holy Communion. I went back and sat in the little wooden pew and was praying and meditating about this experience when the voice started again. And this time it said, "The communion ceremony is to become the union ceremony. You have taken the bread and the wine in remembrance of me. You are now to perform an inner ceremony to become me." And I was instructed on the inner plane to create that image of the cave, to see the Shroud of Turin, to visualize it becoming a body of light, and to literally place my own body in that body of light until the inner vibrations at the atomic level picked up that vibration of light. So I conceived of the cave, I brought myself in there, and I saw the Shroud of Turin becoming a body of light. I placed my body in that body, and I felt a very profound inner light. And as I rose in my mind's eye out of that cave, I felt that I was in the process of becoming a resurrected being, a new humanity. And I heard the words, "Go look at the predictive passages in the New Testament." So I got a little Bible. I went and sat in this garden, beautiful flowers and a wonderful big golden cross and the blue sky. And I turned to a passage in Corinthians. I had my journal in my lap. "Behold, I show you a mystery. You shall not all sleep. You shall all be changed. In the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, and the trumpet shall sound. This mortal flesh will become immortal. Death shall have no dominion." And with that, I began to write. The floodgates of my mind were opened. I realized that every idea, thought, image that I had learned about at the growing edge of futuristic possibilities, the biological revolution, the information revolution, the astronautic revolution, the psychic revolution, the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligence, all of that far out thought came right up in, and I saw, oh my God, Jesus is the potential self of the human race. He did it. And he said, we shall do the works that he did, and even greater works in the fullness of time, because he goes to the Father, because he did it. And I realized that all of evolution had been leading to this point, that Jesus was a being who manifested the new pattern of creation. He established the template and told us that we would do it too. I went from passage of Scripture to passage of Scripture. My process was I would read Scripture, I would not think, I would not figure it out, I would just allow the inner knowing to dictate to me what to write. I spent several hours writing at the fastest speed I could. Then I went back to Matthew 1 and started at the beginning. And I realized that the entire Scripture is coded evolution. The way Jesus was born, the way he was at one with God from the beginning, the way he could control the material world, the idea that we should all be heirs of God is what evolution indicates. I became ecstatically joyful, and I decided to cancel everything, all my appointments, all my speeches. And for the next 6 months, morning after morning, I arose, I read a passage of scripture, I wrote, and I realized that what I was doing was I was receiving an evolutionary interpretation of the New Testament. It was telling our generation that we can do the works, that Jesus the Christ is the potential of every man, woman, and child. It is not one person who was the Son of God, it's every man, woman, and child who is the son and daughter of God. And it says that due to the rapid rise of consciousness in so many millions of souls on earth, ordinary people like myself, there is a new dispensation being given. Armageddon is not necessary. Armageddon is what will happen if self-centered consciousness prevails, but self-centered consciousness is not prevailing, even though it is still clustered at the heads of states and institutions and amplified through our media. Under the surface of those collective fears is a whole generation of consciousness which is already centered in God, which is already connected, which already knows. And the alternative to Armageddon, says this text that I wrote, is a world instant of cooperation with each other, with nature, and with God. The inner Christ will rise in each of us. The cosmic Christ, the presence of the being who did it first, will connect with the presence within each of us. And the entire human species, in an instant in time, will be awakened to the fact that we are a co-creative species, at one with God, at the dawn of the universal age, in a universe of many mansions.
6 months of daily writing resulted in 2,000 pages of manuscript typed on both sides. The voice of the text, the Christ, tells us why it was written.
This text is a call to action, written for those who intend to do as I did and more. The commandments in this text are coded instructions for universal life. They could not be fully understood until the capacity to act upon them had matured. They were lodged deep in the human mind as aspirations to be fulfilled in the fullness of time. These are the technologies of co-creation: nuclear, genetic, electronics, astronautics, cybernetics, and psychic. One generation of humans has known of the existence of these capacities combined. They are the essential components of your access to the tree of life. This text was written not to add or to subtract from the divine book of Revelation. It was written to inform you of the alternative to Armageddon.
The patterns of the evolutionary past suggest that a positive future is a reasonable choice. A broad perspective is needed.
The evolutionary perspective is the broadest possible perspective of the universe. It starts back at the origin of creation, some 15 to 20 billion years ago, the first turn on the spiral, the magnificent explosion of subatomic particles. The second turn on the spiral, 4.5 billion years ago, our solar system and Earth, solid material formed. 3.5 billion years ago, single-celled life emerged in the early seas of Earth. For millions of years, those single cells divided and divided to reproduce, and at some point they hit a limit to growth, an overpopulation, a stagnation, and there was another turn on the spiral. Multicellular life, plants, animals, the biosphere was formed, the origin of the species, and we go all the way up through the animal world for millions and millions of years until you get to the next turn on the spiral, the origin of human consciousness. Another quantum leap. And you have all of human history, starting even with Neanderthal, burying food with the dead, some intimation of something more to come. Adam and Eve go for the tree of life, the
tree of immortality, the tree of the gods. As we climb up the spiral, we get to Egypt, the first sign of the regenerating being. India, the first sign of cosmic consciousness. Greece, the first sign of understanding the laws of nature. Israel, the first sign that we are to be partners with God for the transformation of the world. Christ, a first template of humanity, harbinger of the next stage of evolution. Then all of modern history, science, democracy, great tools of transformation, leading up to the modern age, the explosion of the atomic bomb, a signal that we are about to go around the next turn on the spiral. Our generation is living through that turn on the spiral, and when we complete that loop, we will be a universal species. Beyond planet-boundedness, beyond separation, beyond scarcity, beyond degeneration, in a universe of many, many planetary systems, what was predicted by the religions of the world and what is being discovered by the sciences of the world is about to be acted out in evolution.
In order to examine the implications of the evolutionary perspective and to further express the content of the Book of Co-Creation, the producer invited 5 individuals to a studio environment where their dialogue could be taped. Guests were asked to field questions to Barbara so that this program would be a documentation of the key ideas of the book rather than an interpersonal discussion of them. Barbara's guests include Reverend Jerry Schober, Judson Edwards, Jean Rogers, John Howland, and Sister Regina Winters.
I believe we are at the phase of maximum metacrisis. It's probably, given the birth analogy, just as the head is coming out of the birth canal. And we are undergoing a selection process based on states of consciousness, from the self-centered womb state to the whole-centered, God-centered, universal state. And we can feel ourselves choosing minute by minute whether we want to go back or want to be separate, or whether we are attracted and want to go forward and are aware of our power as co-creators with God. At the time of a quantum transformation, you remember that spiral, when the system is moving from one state to the next, there's a tendency of the momentum of past activities to overshoot the mark, so to speak. For example, you can just think of a baby in the womb. It tends to get a little bit too big for the womb just before it's about to be born. From the perspective of the womb, it's a terrible problem, but that problem itself is a driver that forces the birth. Now, if we take that analogy and look at what's happened on Earth, be fruitful and multiply, which is the commandment for all these 10,000 years of human history, it's gone a bit too far and it's becoming overpopulation. Preserve all life has gone a bit too far, and it's resulting in undesirable technological prolongation of animal-human life. Give food and shelter to the people can become over-industrialization, pollution, inflation, and resource depletion in the developed world. All these so-called problems are caused by a natural overreaching of a past phase of growth. Now, the feedback from our environment is rapidly informing us to stop doing what was necessary in the past, to stop overpopulating and polluting and over-industrializing. We don't want to say it was bad when we did it. It was good when we did it. It's just that we can't keep doing it. Be fruitful and multiply becomes consciously conceived chosen children who will be given the opportunity of optimum development. Preserve all life becomes the opportunity for chosen death and chosen extended life. Give food and shelter to the people becomes activate the creative revolution, build new worlds on Earth, new worlds in space, an environment of resources capable of meeting the needs of all members of the social body without suppressing the creativity of any members of that body.
Well, Barbara, our current materialistic thinking and behavior that is so prevalent now, isn't that actually a catalyst in that process?
Yes, it really is. Not only has it brought us to overshooting the mark and acting as an evolutionary driver, but we mustn't forget that there's a real positive side to materialism. There's the whole idea of progress and human betterment came out of our understanding of the material world. It has been exemplified in science, art, industry, medicine, architecture. The great capacity of the human mind to understand the laws of nature and build new forms out of old, to create more out of less, to invent bodies to overcome limits like submarines, airplanes, and rockets. It's essential to evolution and could be enhanced and not denied at the next stage of evolution. What it basically says is that every man, woman, and child has a choice right now, both on the personal level and on the planetary level, as to whether we go to Armageddon or to a peaceful transition to the next stage of evolution. On the personal level, minute by minute, we have a choice between love and fear, between wholeness and separation. And as we move towards the wholeness, as we move towards the love, we're moving the whole system in the direction of the peaceful transformation. And obviously, on the global scale, as we build up with these enormous arms, the state of consciousness that's personal has now been collectivized, such that if we make a negative choice collectively, the whole human race goes out. And when you say, who's going to make this choice? The answer is you and me. Individuals of integrity freely joining are the ones who will save this world. It will be you and me. Now what the text says is, dearly beloveds, let us do away once and for all with this childish threat of hellfire and brimstone for those who do not believe in me. And the me is the Christ. The end is near. The old play is almost over. If you do not choose to evolve into wholesome, co-creative humans, you shall not. That is punishment enough. There need be no threats. There is only choice. That is the purpose of freedom. Only those who choose to evolve do. I hereby abrogate all threats of punishment except the only one that matters. If you do not choose to fulfill your potential to become a full human, you shall not. So what we are going through here from the perspective of the Book of Co-Creation is quite literally a planetary birth experience. The whole system is coordinating into one whole. Our communication systems, our environmental systems, our defense systems are linking us up into one. And we have the power, collectively, to destroy the Earth or to build new worlds on this Earth, new worlds in outer space, new worlds in the human mind. And the question is, which way will we go? And we are the generation of choice. If we choose the positive, we have within us right now the seeds of the most magnificent creative revolution that the world has ever seen, because we have collectively the capacities to feed, house, clothe, educate, explore reaches of inner space and outer space. We have the whole world in our hands, as it said. What the text says is that we are meant to be heirs of God. We are shifting our relationship to God from children to partners due to the empowerment of the human race. One way of describing this is to say our story is quite literally a birth. We've had 15 billion years of evolution in the womb here, and now we're finally becoming one whole system. We're integrating, as we said before, we're putting our little bodies out into outer space, and we are actually being born. The period of our birth, you could say the signal that the species is ready to be born, was the birth of Jesus Christ, because he is the fully human. He was the first human cell to manifest the capacities of postnatal humanity, what we will be like after this period, what our species will be like after the transition from self-centered womb life to whole-centered, God-centered, universal life. He began the labor to transcend. His acts triggered the capacities of love of life and its twin offsprings, science and democracy. And science is the mind's understanding of nature, and democracy is the idea of the sacredness of the individual. The labor then began 2,000 years ago. The birth pangs intensified with the explosion of the atomic bomb in 1945. That was the signal that humanity could destroy its womb or co-create new worlds on Earth, new worlds in space. It is the mature power of a godlike species. An irresistible birth process began. We had to go forward to become a godlike species or destroy ourselves in the process of birth. We entered the birth canal. The meta-crisis of limits began. And here the analogy is quite accurate. In the womb, a baby can't continue to grow. There's a resource shortage, a space shortage, a shortage of everything. Overpopulation, pollution, alienation, confusion, malaise about the future, disconnection with the past. The experts with a womb perspective advocated a return to the simpler past, an adaptation to limits. There's this marvelous dialogue someone told about of a fetal scientist in the womb in the 8th month, predicting that by the 9th month there'd be massive overcrowding, and by the 10th month there'd be destruction of the environment, and by the 11th month the organism would die. But the fetal scientist didn't know about birth. So many of the experts right around the 60s and 70s were saying, our problem is that we have to return to the past limits. What they didn't realize is that the species is being born to universal life, and there's no way to go back again. A futurist wrote of a paradigm shift from self-centered to whole-centered thinking. Evolutionaries like me evangelized the extended gospel of Christ's capacities for all. There was a great argument going on because nobody knew what was happening. Simultaneously, these capacities turned on. They include astronautics. We penetrated our womb out into space. Genetics. That meant we begin to understand the design of our bodies. The biological revolution is going to change bodies. It already is. Longevity, aging, life extension, cybernetics and robotics. That is the capacity to do work with no effort. When Jesus said, look at the lilies in the field, how they grow and they toil not. We are going to be released from work by the sweat of our brow. In 1957, we first penetrated the cosmic womb. Sputnik signaled to all that life was no longer limited to the terrestrial world. We learned to communicate with our own genetic code, to build new bodies, and to extend our mind bodies into intelligent machines. From space, we reacted with joy at the image of ourselves as one. One body struggling to coordinate and reaching beyond ourselves for new life. This is not a metaphor, this is real. The pain of birth intensified. Attention was withdrawn from attraction to new capacities to the complexity of surviving and managing as a planetary system in which 2/3 of the members are undernourished. The tribulations of birth increased, and at the same time, many cells began to cooperate to flow with the forces of the birth. They began to restore the earth. That's the whole environmental movement. 1969 was Earth Day, and it was the day we landed on the moon. The very same year that we became a universal species, we began to restore our earth. At least $1 billion is now flowing into Africa. The problem is we don't know how to utilize it there yet, so it isn't fulfilling its mission. But there's no question we have a consciousness that if there's starvation in Africa or India, it's in our body. Educating everyone to the good news of the newly discovered capacities. If you don't know that you have capacities to feed, house, and clothe everyone, then you can accept hunger. But once you know that it's not inevitable, you cannot accept it anymore. And building the post-natal capacities, which include living in space. You see, we're going to have space habitats made out of non-terrestrial resources, lunar materials, solar energy, asteroids. These are literally Earth-independent worlds. Extending our lifespan, cybernating the tasks of maintenance. Most of us now spend a lot of time maintaining the system. That can be handed over to intelligent machines. And in the past, most of us had to have maximum reproduction, maximum number of babies in order for enough to survive. So as women have fewer children and men are released from the repetitive work of maintaining, what's happening is we're freeing the unique creativity of the individual and possibly contacting other life which has survived its planetary birth. And perhaps one of the reasons we have not yet contacted extraterrestrial life is we've been in the womb. Just as a baby can't see in the womb, our species cannot see other life yet. But we've had these UFOs, we've had glimpses. We have barely opened our eyes. We barely remember we are born. We can hardly believe the good news foretold in the New Testament that we are to have life everlasting in partnership with God in a universe of many mansions. And here's what the text says. The destiny of all kingdoms of life on earth is to develop the capacity to reproduce earth life in the universe, seeding the universe with new worlds that carry information concerning all the acts of earth, its atomic acts, its molecular acts, its cellular acts, its animal and plant acts, its human acts, its cultural history, and to restore Mother Earth after she has given birth to universal life. The thought here is that in order for any organism to show that it's alive, it has the capacity to reproduce itself. And that planet Earth is in fact Gaia, a living organism. And in its early space program, it is the very earliest phase of creating seed pods. And what will go in those seed pods are replicas of all of Earth life.
Barbara, what does the text give as the basis of the problem on Earth?
Well, it gives us two very clear statements. It says there are twin defects, neither of which are of human origin.
Oh, really?
The first defect is carnivorous behavior in the animal world. And the second defect is the illusion of separation, which was induced in the Garden of Eden story by a higher being. Now, the carnivorous behavior defect occurred way before humanity. And if you look in Genesis, the original design was that humans eat herbs and animals also are herbivores. And this is from Genesis 1. It says, "And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed upon the earth, and all trees that have in themselves seed of their own kind to be your meat. And to all beasts of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to all that move upon the earth, and wherein there is life, that they may have to feed upon. And it was so done." Now, when I read that and was writing the text, And the answer was that that is the plan for a normal planet. And what the text says is that on normal planets, carnivorous behavior does not occur.
Barbara, does that mean then that we all have to become vegetarians?
No. Here's what the text says, Jerry. The cure for carnivorous behavior is not the impossible effort to return an entire planetary system to vegetarianism. In the interim phase, which is the birth phase we're in, we are to gradually move to vegetarianism. And then it is to move quickly to co-creative behavior, wherein nourishment is received directly from the sun, bypassing the food chain altogether. We will have new bodies that eat sunlight eventually. Flesh and blood will not inherit the kingdom, as Jesus said. Love the animal in the world and in yourself, and do not kill him anymore.
What about the illusion of separation?
The second defect, the illusion of separation, according to the Book of Co-Creation, occurred at the very dawn of human consciousness in that Garden of Eden story. Adam and Eve in a state of organic, whole-centered consciousness, almost animal, part of the whole. Then came the serpent, which is a higher consciousness, some being from beyond that early human intelligence, and seduced Eve to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, it's my understanding from an evolutionary point of view that the knowledge of good and evil is eventually available to a mature consciousness, but we went for it too early in the evolutionary cycle. It's like an adolescent who too early is seduced into sexuality. We were not quite ready for it. And that seduction came from outside human intention. And Eve was basically curious and innocent, not intentionally evil. And what's fascinating to me is in that story, Eve originated this act, Adam followed her, and then evidently both of them were heading for the next tree, which is the tree of life, the tree of gods, the tree of immortality. And what it says in Genesis, and God said, behold, Adam is become as one of us, knowing good and evil. In other words, it's godly to know this. Now, therefore, lest perhaps he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life, and eat and live forever. And the Lord God sent him out of the garden. All of human history could be looked at as a reach for the tree of life, as a desire to be like the gods. And the point we're going to be making in this whole book of co-creation is that that's natural, but it is not natural in the illusion of separation. So the basic thing here is that humanity is innocent. And here's what the text says. A planet with the twin error of carnivorous behavior and secular scientific materialism is in danger of self-abortion at the critical birth transition from terrestrial to universal life. The combination of the instinct to kill, combined with the forgetfulness of your relationship to God, is very dangerous. I, Jesus, am come to inform you that humanity is innocent of the intention to reject God. You have been infected by a disease of a higher being than your own. Do not feel guilty, humanity. You are innocent. Forgive the animal for eating flesh, and forgive Satan for fearing God. Know that the devil shall wither away. He has strength only to the degree that you permit the illusion of separation and the fear of rejection to prevail. So all the problems we have, for whatever cause, now reside in the free will of human individuals such as you and me. And the beauty of it is that we are designed to make the choice of being as the gods when we connect our consciousness to the Christ within. coming back to the idea of us being at a choice point, and let's assume that 1945 is that point when the change began with the explosion of the atomic bomb, then we are facing another turn in the evolutionary spiral. Now, in the New Testament, there is a violent scenario, and it looks a great deal like a nuclear holocaust. When that seventh seal is opened, literally all hell breaks loose. It does not seem to me that we are yet at that point. Even though we dropped the bomb in Hiroshima, it did not destroy the whole world. Now, if we take the birth analogy, you can imagine that there's a whole set of possible scenarios, not just one single one. So there's a negative set, of which nuclear holocaust is one, and there's some other possibilities. I mean, there's biospheric collapse, there's total social alienation. We've seen a lot of these scenarios in science fiction. Nobody knows for sure how we move from this meta-crisis to the next stage of evolution.
Do we have to undergo the tribulation?
Well, here's what it says in the text. The answer depends on how many of you register your intention to do as I did. Now, this is speaking as the Christ, that if enough of us have the intention to be at one with God, we do not need to have any tribulations. If 1% of the human population were to vote consciously for the future as exemplified by me, by the Christ, the mass destruction could be avoided. The birth could be graceful. The attractors could attract 3/4 of humanity, neutralizing those who continue to remain in self-centered consciousness. In other words, if a certain percentage of the human race right now were to consciously choose to be connected to God, that would create enough of a force to attract the vast majority who is wanting to go in this direction. And the only ones then who might not participate directly would be ones who consciously choose to stay separate, and that would be a minority.
You were discussing with Judd about the tribulation. What does the text say the tribulation is?
The text says it's wave upon wave of selection of the God-centered from the self-centered. Since the empowerment is flooding into the system, there evidently is a natural selection process, so that when the process is complete, the only ones remaining are in a state of at-one-ment with God. There are no people left who have the illusion of separation. Now, this may seem very strange, but from evolutionary point of view, species are extinct all the time. 98% of all species that ever lived on Earth are extinct. The only ones that continue are the ones that one way or another are adaptable. Now, it's my view that the human species is a series of psychological species, from extreme self-centered to normal to extreme whole-centered or God-centered. And I think what we're finding is that because the environment is changing, the environment is now interactive and empowering, that part of our species that experiences themselves as separate is not viable, because we're going to be empowered. So the tribulations is a selection process.
So what will it be like? What will the selection process actually be like?
This is one of the most far-out ideas in the New Testament and also in the Book of Co-Creation. From the Book of Co-Creation point of view, it says that every single act, intention, desire, and thought is evaluated. And the criteria of selection is this intention, act, desire, or thought viable at the next stage of evolution? And if it is not viable, it will not go through. And if it is viable, it will be enhanced. And it says that all humans whose acts, intentions, and desires have registered these qualities will be resurrected at this time if they are not alive at the shift. Now, when I was writing the text, my process was to take an idea that was in the New Testament and simply ask, how could this happen? Now, in the New Testament, It says in Revelation 20:12, "And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged according to their works." Now I asked, what is the book of life? And the answer I got was that the book of life is actually the recording of every idea, intention, and act of each person in the mind of God. And if we want to use modern jargon, there could be a giant computer in the sky. In esoteric language, it's the Akashic records. Now the thought is that each one of us is recorded in everything that we do. The cell of each of us has the plan for building our body. That's the DNA, that's data, and that's recordable. Our brains record every experience that we ever had on the neurons. That's data. It's recordable, and it actually is recordable. And our souls are immortal. Resurrection is no more difficult than conception. Conception is a miracle. When you think that, a sperm and an egg somehow connect and create a material body into which an immortal soul incarnates. If God can do that, God can resurrect. The difference between resurrection and conception is that the resurrected being would have the mature memory bank and would have a new body that would be in the model of Jesus' body. Because after the quantum transformation, there will be no more physical death, and there will be no more separation. So I took that literally, and I would call it a meditative hypothesis, is that we are literally recorded, and our souls are immortal. And when the time comes, there can be a reconstitution of the physical body at the next stage. We've taken a glimpse of the negative scenario. Now let's look a little bit more into the positive. And I just want to tell you that the way I started all of this way back in 1966 was by an attraction to the positive, not by fear out of the negative. This entire scenario was based on a passionate attraction to our potentials. It says in the text, "Some of you alive now will witness the next stage of evolution, not in a vision, but in actuality. You who are intending to follow me the whole way will do so and experience yourselves as natural Christs." And there's an indication here that although we can go quite far by our own intention, something more is needed to take it the whole way. And what's more is needed is a field to be established among enough of us so that the vibrations hold. Now, how could that happen? What it says in the book of Co-Creation is one of the ways this is to happen is by a series of empathetic earth, space, mind link-ups. Now, when we had the lunar landing, can you remember what happened on Earth? When Neil Armstrong put his foot on the moon, there was a moment of planetary consciousness. No matter what nation, race, creed, or color, it was humanity witnessing itself doing something new. In co-creation, it says that people in our state of consciousness, that is in a state of whole-centered, God-centered, Christ-centered consciousness, should be allowed to go up in vehicles like the space shuttle. And instead of having to do the task of an astronaut or a specialist, their task should be to be in the state of consciousness and share the experience with people on Earth, so that everyone on Earth who was meditating, praying, or in that state would also do so consciously. And through the connection of the consciousness orbiting the planet and, let's say, 1% of us on Earth, which is really feasible through mass media, we would create an empathetic field that would actually change the vibrations of Earth so that enough of us could stabilize at the new norm. I mean, that's a very simple idea, but it says that when that happens, our individual nervous systems will collectively attune to the inner vibration. And as in the first Pentecost, everyone will begin to hear the voice of God in their own language, in the same words, at the same time, and that this will be a definitive shift on earth. And the text indicates that we will be taken up to the New Jerusalem. Those of us who believe in our capacity to be like Christ, to prepare the way for our brothers and sisters.
Barbara, what does it mean to be taken up?
Well, of course, I don't know exactly, but what the Book of Co-Creation says is that it is a complex personal transformation that millions of us are going through now to some degree. And it's a matter of that degree becoming qualitatively established. You enter a state of holistic or Christ-centered consciousness as a norm. You don't flicker in and out of it anymore, you hold it. And in this state, you are awakened by an inner electricity which subtly changes the frequency of the atomic level in your body. The atoms quicken, and they thus allow you to resonate at the same frequency as other beings who have graduated from their terrestrial wombs. The text says that if we go through this oneness together and it's on mass media, through the lifting of our vibrations collectively, we will collectively see other beings. Now, can you imagine what a unifying experience that would be on Earth? Instead of it being the negative fear of aliens coming in, which you see in the science fiction, what it would be the common attraction of experiencing a higher dimension of reality together beyond the divisions of religions and cultures. So they couldn't be separated and say, well, it's mine, or no, it's mine. Some other characteristics of the positive scenario are interesting. For example, the New Testament says that time, as we know it, will disappear. The interpretation of that is that time is perceived when we are in self-centered consciousness and experience ourselves as separate. When we move into whole-centered, God-centered, Christ-centered consciousness, we experience ourselves in an eternity. We have access to what has been, what is, and what will be, and we unfold, but we do not actually experience time passing. And particularly as we move towards a continuity of consciousness, where we don't live a certain length of time and die and then have to get started again. When we have that continuity of the past, present, and into the future, the sense of time as we know it with the 5 mammalian senses will pass, and we will experience ourselves as contiguous with all that has been. We will learn the code of degeneration, or programmed death, and change it consciously to the code of regeneration and chosen life. We will gain the capacity to leave our bodies at will, renew them at will, dematerialize and rematerialize them at will, and redesign them as necessary to survive in the new environments beyond the biosphere of Mother Earth. Everyone will be born a natural Christ. Everyone will be a chosen person, a higher being, a self-selected life. The next stage of evolution, we will be godly rather than human. We will be godliness personified. We will always be connected to the whole. We will have the capacities of a natural Christ, which include self-healing, telepathy, clairvoyance, clairaudience, levitation, materialization, and dematerialization. Empathetic love will be a constant state. We will be a community of natural Christs, attuning to the design of God, co-creating with that design, and giving a unique contribution, each emancipating the best in each, ever mindful of God. This is the form of self-government in the New Jerusalem. What we as humans know as evolution will be known as a conscious act of God to create beings in His own image who will be capable of co-evolving the universe to the stage of universal godhood. Progress will be defined as ever greater union with God. Suprasexual couplehood will be the form of personal union, and marriage will be by agreement to create together in the name of God. Sexuality is the union to create children. Suprasexuality is a creative union to not necessarily only have babies, but to create something for the world. And many people are doing that now. And as we live longer lives and have fewer children, that which will bond us cannot simply be reproduction. Because a woman might live 95 years and have one child. What will unite us is not just the survival and reproduction of the species, but the evolution of the species through our acts. And everything I'm saying would be lethal if we are in the state of self-centered consciousness, including the biological revolution. But if we are God-centered beings, then we're supposed to have dominion over our bodies. The bonds of shared intention are far deeper than the bonds of blood. None of this is a surprise. The saints and seers throughout history have told us all these things. And just now we are beginning to realize that it is true. All of it. Quite literally true.
Barbara, when will this happen? Does this text give any indications regarding the time frame?
The text says, you have no more than 20 to 50 years, a blink of the cosmic eye. The quantum instant will come when enough of you are ready. In that respect, it's like a birth. The exact moment of birth is a complex matter. It is necessary that people from every nation, race, and culture have the free choice to evolve when the selection process begins. The elect, or those who are choosing, cannot be limited to one people or one part of the world.
What will that quantum instant be like, Barbara?
Now, the way it has expressed itself through me is this image of the birth. And it starts out with an actual shared cosmic birth experience. And what that would be like is we begin to feel the connectedness. And if we have that Earth-space mind linkage, I somehow feel that that could be the trigger for a cosmic birth experience, because we got close to it with the lunar landing. And what would happen is that our mass media would start picking up people experiencing their connectedness. And as the media picks it up, it amplifies. And at some moment, people start knowing something different's happening on Earth. In a negative way, it happened during the assassinations, like of the Pope or President Kennedy. You'd be standing on a street corner and someone would say, have you heard, have you heard, have you heard? Well, in the positive scenario, people would be saying, they're gathering in the streets, they're gathering in the squares, they're gathering in the churches. And we would be feeling this love, somewhat like we felt in the Russian church. There is the gathering together of people that can't be separated. The empathy is coursing through the body. And at some point, I actually hear a tone. Like maybe we begin to chant or om, and the media picks it up. And as the media amplifies it, more and more people get it, until we come to an actual moment of such profound integration and empathy that there is a collective aha. And we begin a planetary smile. It just ripples through the body. And in that instant of the planetary smile, there's what the Book of Co-Creation calls the great instant of cooperation. It will not come as the light that blinded St. Paul on the road to Damascus. It will not come as the voice that spoke to St. Francis in the privacy of his heart. It will not come as the signal to St. Joan that she must lead the armies of France. It will not come to the peoples of earth one by one. It will come to the peoples of earth together in one instant of time. This is the great instant of cooperation. It does not mean being nice to each other. It does not mean agreeing with each other. It does not mean peace, comfort, or even working together. It means cooperating with God. It means co-evolving with me, the Christ. It means co-experiencing the same force at the same time and acting together in the same accord with an idea that you all have from within. It means transcending the experience of self-consciousness. The walls will come down everywhere on earth. You will fall irresistibly in love with yourselves as one body. That which separates us will not exist any longer. There will be a mass infusion of empathy, amplified by our media. The devil, Satan, will be overcome, infused with love. His task as selector will be rendered loving. He will not have to be buried in the bottomless pit. He will be released from his anger and reunited with God. That element in the human race that has been separated will be so consumed by this moment that it will be totally connected with God. Now this is the most exciting part for me. It's called the contact with me, with the Christ, as a shared experience. And I will be enabled to contact all of you at once. This is my dream. This is my passion. This is my desire, to have all of you paying attention to me at once through the activation of your own inner experience of your potential to be me, rather than relying on priests, mystics, or saints, beloved though they are. Their work is done. Yours has begun. As the planetary smile ripples through the nervous systems of the earth, and the instant of cooperation begins, empathy floods the feelings of the whole body of earth. Separation is overcome, and I appear to all of you at once. I appear to you from within as a voice. It's your own inner Christ. And as a vision of yourself as an evolving being. I appear to you from without on your electronic media as the evolved being that I am. It is not Jesus of Nazareth that reappears. It is a presence that is indeed the resurrected Christ. For remember, the promise I made is of a personal future in a transformed body. This means you will also have what I have now. I am real, I am tangible, I am alive. I can speak to each of you through your inner ear if you will listen, and many of us are getting this all the time. I can appear to each of you through your inner eye if you will look. At the moment of cosmic contact, I will appear to you both through your inner experience and through external communication on your mass media, the nervous system of the world. You will all feel, hear, and see my presence in one instant in time. The silence in heaven will conclude in peace. The fateful destruction will be avoided. The planetary celebration will begin for the birth of humankind in the universe, a blessed cosmic child eagerly awaited by the evolved beings throughout the universe without end. Hallelujah. Amen. That's what it says it will be like.
Barbara, you've used the term New Jerusalem several times. Would you elaborate on that?
It is the natural society for those who love God above all else, their neighbor as themselves, and themselves as a natural Christ. It is the dream of the Indians who turned within for contact with the all. It is the vision of the Egyptians who prepared for cosmic life in new bodies in those pyramids. It is the fulfillment of Israel, the perfect alignment of the human will with the will of God. It is the manifestation of the promise made by Jesus, the first person on earth to transform from the old body to the new. It is the achievement of the scientists and the technologists who learned God's visible processes of creation. It is the purpose of the people who came to the United States of America to be free, to be fully human. It embodies the symbols of that nation, which is e pluribus unum, out of many, one. Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new order of the ages. And annuit ceptus, God favors this enterprise. And it fulfills the dream of the communist world, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. So the New Jerusalem is the fulfillment of the aspirations of the peoples of earth. It is their potential realized, their genius personified, their creativity emancipated.
Is there anything we can do to prepare for the New Jerusalem?
Sister Regina, the messages in the Book of Co-Creation are very precise. And I'm going to ask you and everybody listening to this tape to close your eyes now, because what we're being asked to do is to visualize ourselves as a natural Christ. This is one of the steps toward the preparation for the New Jerusalem. So if you would just close your eyes now and visualize with me this image of ourselves. Imagine what you will be like when you are fully human. Your body will not decay. It will shine with the radiance of the total love you feel for God and all beings. Your eyes will be lit with the fire of joy that you are the blessed son or daughter of God, co-created with Him on a universal scale. Your feet will be like fine brass. You will glow with a biomagnetic field through which you will materialize and dematerialize, ascend and descend from one vibratory plane to another. You will glitter and coruscate with the electricity generated by the intensity of your coherent thought in alignment with God. Your voice will have the sound of many waters. It will flow effortlessly with the profound oratory of perfect meaning. You will know what to say at all times because your mind is linked to the mind of God. You will hold the stars of heaven in your hands. Even now you reach with a baby's hand toward the moon. Like a child still bound to your crib, you reach beyond the rails toward a bright object nearby. This is just the beginning. Soon you will leave your cradle and stand a giant upon the earth, with your feet firmly rooted in the clay of this world, and your arms reaching to touch the stars in the galaxies beyond your planetary system. You are in touch with the universe, dearly beloved. You are godlike men and women. Believe this, and it shall be so. Out of your mouth come words of perfect discernment. Yes, this is God's will. No, this is not God's will. Your voice will be a two-edged sword. You will constantly cut away that which is off the mark. You are able to align your will with the will of God at all times. Your countenance will be as glorious as the sun, shining with the strength given to you by your sonship and daughtership with God. As Jesus was transfigured, so you are transfigured when you recognize that you are God's son and daughter, in whom He is very well pleased. When you see yourself in the image of God, you see yourself as Christ, and now you listen to His words. Dearly beloveds, to go to the New Jerusalem, desire the kingdom of heaven above all else. Put the kingdom first. Will your entrance into the kingdom with absolute certainty that God the Father wills it for you. I am the model for the individual, as the New Jerusalem is the model for the community. I, Jesus Christ, was conceived consciously. I was born conscious. I was aware that I was a son of God from childhood. I practiced love.
And I chose to be crucified to this body, to demonstrate the potential to materialize a new body more receptive to my intention. I told you that you would do the same in the fullness of time, which is now. I resurrected my body and changed it. I ascended as you will. I now exist in total Christ consciousness, which is a frequency band of awareness open to all who imagine themselves as me, whatever name they use. Let us open our eyes now. And that is really a good way to say it. Let's open our eyes now. Let's see our deeper, true identity now. And let's see it in each other. And I would like everybody who's viewing this to, as they open their eyes, look into the eyes of each person who may be in the room, as we are doing here, and catch sight of ourselves as godlike beings. You know that beautiful gesture, namaste? The God in me salutes the God in you. And when we see ourselves as godlike beings, we become so. How do we become a natural Christ?
A natural Christ is natural. And it is happening in every one of us that is making the choice to be at one with the highest in us. We are now at the stage where it will not happen without our choice, because it's the stage of conscious evolution rather than unconscious evolution. Now what the text says about it is, first, you must prepare a holy place within where you can encounter me at all times in utter tranquility, safe from the material world. That's that inner sound studio where the still small voice is always speaking. That calls for attention. Second, you must pledge yourself to this union in absolute fidelity, putting nothing else first. Third, you must create within yourself an environment of total inner peace. Because inner peace is the signal to yourselves that you're no longer separate. And what the text says is that when any of us achieves an environment of inner peace, it is a signal to our system, to our biochemical system, that our co-creative powers may turn on. That means regeneration, rejuvenation, psychic powers, healing powers, clairvoyant powers, telepathic powers, that when you are at perfect peace, you become naturally something beyond just the five senses. The bridegroom takes the initiative once the bride is prepared. So we will not do this by human will alone.
Barbara, it's one thing to be here in this environment with you. It's another thing to be out there in that world. How do you see us maintaining a connection with our potentials?
I think we have to pray without ceasing until our consciousness is infused with God consciousness. That's number one. And number two, we need to gather together with others doing the same. Whether we do it in our churches or form small groups or in our organizations, everybody has some friends that are in the same mode. And we need to form resonating cores and do it together, assist each other and become teams. Very much like the early disciples. They could not go out alone. At the very most, they always went by twos. But 12 is a good number. Jerry, in the text, there's some guided meditations given that I have found very useful. They're deep affirmations. And one is called the 7 Spirits of God. This is what it says each of us needs to affirm in order to be godly. And I might just to share that with you.
when I do this in my meditations, I close my eyes and I speak silently, but I'll speak out loud. But it is with closed eyes that I do this. The first spirit is love. I am love. I love God above all else, my neighbor as myself, and myself as a natural Christ. I am wisdom. I recognize what is breaking through from what is breaking down. I identify with what is breaking through, and I release what is breaking down. I am faith. I know there is a perfect design of creation. Each of us is a vital element in that design, and I know that I am now acting in perfect harmony with that design. I am courage. I know that I am not working alone. I am surrounded by mighty companions on this earth and in the universe beyond. Together, we work toward inevitable victory. I am patience. The timing is not in my hands. I live in eternity. I act in the present. I am totally fulfilled. I surrender all need to know the timing and act in total joy. I am power. To the degree that I empower others, I am now empowered. I am surrender. Not my will, but thine be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Now, I repeat these to myself every day, and as I do so, I actually bring into my own consciousness the fact that I have these capacities. Now, sometimes people don't like to say I am. They say maybe one day I will be. But what I've noticed is if I say I will be it, then I never am.
It's like saying tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow I will stop smoking.
Yeah.
So I now say I am. And by saying that, I'm signaling my biochemical system that I'm ready for it to act on what I am. So there is a universal law here that everyone becomes what they image they are.
Sounds to me like there's a major role for the mass media in this.
Judd, I think the mass media is probably the key, because it is the nervous system of the body politic. And from our point of view, planet Earth is a cosmic child, so we have an infantile mass media. It picks up violence, dissension, pain, and puts us to sleep. Now, it is essential that that mass media begin to be sensitized to growth, creativity, cooperation, and love. Otherwise, the general public, the larger mass of people, are not aware of their potentials. And that's like being a stunted child. If you only see reflections of your problems, you probably can't grow. So I think our current mass media has a disease, and it's communicable. It's like a little pun. I call it dysempathitis of the nervous system. It's dead on empathy and love. Here's what the text says about this. It says, you are to broadcast people feeling with people, people loving people, people loving themselves. Your underlying empathy is the trust that there's enough for all, that survival depends on cooperation and creativity rather than competition and covetousness. broadcast the recipes for survival. Bucky Fuller said the world will be saved by a swift telecommunication revolution that tells the people their options. The policies and potentials that could build new worlds on this earth, new worlds in space, new worlds in the human mind, where there will be enough for all, create such a powerful field of empathy through the mass media that it will attract people to union and diminish the attraction to violence. Timing is of the essence. Your task, dearly beloveds, is to spread the word and provide a channel for those who wish to act.
What a contrast to what we see and hear daily.
Well, you see, remember what wisdom means is the awareness of what's breaking through out of what's breaking down. The continual pulsing of violence through that mass media is occurring, but those large networks are now being penetrated by what's breaking through. Even on mass media now, there seems to be somewhat more attention towards the end of news shows of the good news. And there are some major networks now dedicated to finding value-driven social documentaries. Mm-hmm. There are infinite numbers of small media groups that are on cable. The media itself technologically is maturing, and pretty soon there will be so many channels and so much access that the maturation of the nervous system will occur. But I think we should take it very seriously that when the arts depict depravity, the violent films, the killing for entertainment, the tawdry flaunting of love without real love, these are assassins to hope. And moralists who preach irremediable degradation of human beings as sinners are assassinating the witnesses to hope. And if you remember, we said that the image you have of yourself creates reality. If we allow our media to only give us that dose of negative, I'm afraid that it could destroy us. Mm-hmm. So every one of us has a real responsibility to get on the media. It's ours. I would like to draw this to a close by reading to you a passage from the text that summarizes it for me. I, Jesus, am a son of God. You, humanity, are also sons and daughters of God. My message to you is, join me, be me. Together we will worship God by becoming one with Him. You are no longer to worship me as a God. You are to become godlike. Together we will worship the Creator of the whole. My mission was to demonstrate that humanity has the capacity to act like God. Your mission is to prove me right by demonstrating your capacity to do as I did, and even more. Oh, dearly beloveds, if you knew how eagerly your willingness to be like me is awaited in heaven, you would hasten to throw off the shackles of self-limits this instant. Listen well. The sayings in this book are true. They were prophesied by John and will be acted out by you. I come from the bright morning star. I come from afar. I am he who materializes in every planetary system undergoing birth. I am everywhere there is a world a-borning. I am the beginning of universal life everywhere. I am the way through which every species must graduate to become co-creative with God. It cannot be done without love. No, nowhere is it done without love. Without love, a planet self-destructs with the very power it could use to co-create. Even as you are now on the verge of self-destruction or self-evolution, so likewise are your brothers and sisters throughout the many mansions of the universe without end.